The 2020 16-inch MacBook Pro is a versatile piece of kit. It's a tool. It's defined as a pro machine. I wanted to talk about why we bought it. How is this getting used in the real world and what we expect out of this machine. We run a video production company and we use this in a lot of different ways. I mean, we need it for example, being on set. So when we're on set, we may want to transfer files and they need to transfer fast. We need to be able to utilize like USB-C. We also want to be able to pull up a shot that we had and see if that was the shot. Maybe we want to splice some of those clips together to see if a transition works. So if we're going to do a reshoot or move on to our next shoot. So we work with raw codecs, typically with Red Cinema. So they're very heavy codecs, so we're not always doing a full edit on this machine. You can basically pick it up, bring it with you, and go back to the studio and plug it into 75-inch TV or your dual monitor setup or a Pro XDR display monitor. It becomes kind of like a desktop workstation. It's limited by its thermals, but it's also got an 8-core CPU, 64 gigs of RAM, and the GPU is solid with 8 gigs of VRAM. And so it's really about this ecosystem being able to give you the peace of mind that a professional wants. Basically, when you make an investment, especially one that costs a lot of money, if you max one of these things out, it gets ridiculous on the cost. You don't have to think about, is this going to perform when I need it to perform? Imagine you were on set transferring files and you're waiting for the files to transfer fast enough. So utilizing something like an SSD and USB-C can allow you to speed up that process. We did a 60 gigabyte file today and it shrank it into 2 minutes versus 6 minutes before. That's based on the last machine that we had, and yes, that also matters on the type of hard drive that you're using, but little micro increments like that can really make a big difference over a span of a year, right? Of how much time you save and less headaches you're dealing with and things that you can get done faster. Another example is like when we're showcasing our product at a business meeting or a presentation, we really want it to play the files as at the highest quality we possibly can without it lagging or crashing or crackly audio or any of that jazz. We just want it to boot up, pull up our presentation, and be able to engage with the client without thinking or worrying about if the machine is going to work or not. Really, why you want a pro machine is to just not think about it. It should just work. You bring it with you, you open it up, it works. You bring it back to the studio, you plug it into a desktop workstation with dual monitors or a big 75-inch display or a Pro XDR monitor, and you want to run it with a NAS or a RAID system and just start working, you can do that. That's the whole principle around buying a machine at any scale or any level. It doesn't matter if you're in a Windows environment, PC environment, or whether you're in a Mac ecosystem. It's about buying something that's going to give you that peace of mind. For a lot of professionals, that's the case. Of course, you're always balancing price versus performance. So you want to consider, if I invest this much, will it get me that? Will it actually do that? And that's always hard to say because you don't know until you actually use one of these things. The real world experience is very different than the benchmarks. Benchmarks don't actually mean a lot to us. For one example is like, you might get a great benchmark on doing a photo rendering or a certain thing here. It doesn't give an accurate representation of what, for example, Red Cinema files at 4.5K resolution or 6K or 8K resolution does on this specific machine in this certain environment. Are you using it on Premiere Pro or are you using it on Final Cut Pro? I think there's a very big difference. So when we see benchmarks out there, Yes, it might be exciting to know that it's more powerful, which is why we consider it as a purchase, but really we don't know until we purchase it. And so the thing that we say and we do is to do as much research as you possibly can. Will the Adobe software work well on a machine like this? Well, are you gonna buy 6 cores versus 8 cores? Well, Adobe likes more cores than they do a stronger GPU. And that matters for an iMac Pro or a Mac Pro or any product in their lineup. You wanna really think about, well, you know, is this gonna work with this software and with this hardware, and how that works, the integration. There's a lot of nuance. What I say might be different than your experience because the way you use the machine is different. So if we're on location, you know, transferring files or splicing something together is really important in the moment. We just need it to work, right? We want a long battery life. We love having the bigger display, the brighter display. And when you go from location and you go to a desktop setting, it should just be able to plug in and work. And then you should be able to go from that into for example, a coffee shop. And if you want to sit down and just write out some emails or to-do lists, or you got spreadsheets to work on, from that and you're done work for the day and you want to be able to go just watch a movie on your laptop or browse the internet. It's really great for people that do a little bit of everything. If you do 3D rendering, I think this is starting to hit the thermal range of what this piece of technology can do, because there's so much technology jammed in there. And for the amount of heat that it produces in that small case, I mean, there's gonna be a limit. Even if they did come out with 200 and some odd gigs of RAM and all this other jazz, it doesn't matter, because it's still limited to the thermal capacity, which is why you might want to consider something like the iMac Pro, which is also enclosed and has its own thermal capacity, which is why then at that point you might want to consider a Mac Pro as a professional, because the thermal capacity is much greater and the way it's designed to handle certain workloads is there. Each product has its own place in the studio and how it gets used. And I think that's just an important thing that I wanna just reiterate and get across to you guys. Just make sure you do your research on the software that you're going to use and how you're going to use it and what environments you're going to put it in. And if the specs line up for what you want to do, then you should get that, you know? And I think sometimes separating an all-in-one machine into, hey, we need a mobile device and we need a desktop workstation. You know, maybe it's better to separate the two. You know, price versus performance is always a factor. You're never gonna get around that. We come from a business perspective. Yes, it's a write-off. Yes, we use this as our tools every day, so it earns us our living. Think about where you are now and where you wanna be a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and is this piece of tech gonna line up? And if you are second guessing which spec should I get, sometimes it's nicer if you can afford it to just bump it up, because it's gonna help in the short term and it's also gonna help in the long term. As technology and demands progress, your computer can keep up with it, and also the load that it's been dealing with over the years is a lot less if you get a higher spec model, so it's actually not really utilizing the full machine, which hopefully makes it last longer. Because at the end of the day, you're putting a lot of money into this and you want it to last. So all that being said, I hope this helps add something to the conversation as you're making your own purchase decision. This is just how we use it in our work life and studio. If you like this, we're gonna do more on the MacBook Pro. We're gonna do some more videos on the iMac Pro and soon to be the Mac Pro when that comes into the studio, how they stack up against each other, how they work together. And yeah, so get subscribed, like this video, and if you have any questions, drop your thoughts in the comment section. I'll get back at you, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.